complaining. They're not laying out steps that they can take to change that. And so it's coming off as a complaint because the people that can change it, they're just going to continue to say, well, the revenue isn't there. The revenue isn't there. So if you don't bring in the revenue, we can't up your pay. They're going to keep using that. But the reality is, as true as that is, it's an excuse because everyone says, we support women. We support women empowerment. We support women in the workplace. We do this for women. We do X for women, blah, blah, blah. And everyone uses it to their advantage. Yet these women are not using these people that are saying those very things to their advantage.
USWNT star Megan Rapinoe, obviously taking exception to these remarks, and in a recent press conference said the following, quote, "It's really unfortunate that in the position he's in, having all the resources that he has and the ability to have a much more educated opinion, that he just hasn't. Really frustrating. Obviously, he just kind of showed his whole ass and not understanding what we talk about the whole time. You don't think that we've asked for more investment? I mean, what are we screaming about nonstop?" Okay, so we have a lot to unpack here, and here to help us do so, we have ACC Network host Monica McNutt making her first Take debut. Lady, congratulations. Welcome to the show. It's Ladies Hour. So happy to have you. And obviously a lot to unpack here with these comments. So, Chiney, I want to start with you here. What's your reaction to Draymond's comments?
The only worst thing about being wrong is being loud and wrong. I think Brandon Marshall is sort of learning that right now. The meme.
Hey,
right?
Brandon.
Accurate. But I've known. Hey, Brandon. It's all good, Brandon. You gave us a great meme, Brandon. Thank you. Now, I've known Draymond Green for a while. We both played on the World University Games team together for Team USA back when we were in college, which makes this all the more difficult because Day-Day, I mean, he's been on the show with us. He has the right relationships. He has the right people to look to really get answers. So let's set this straight. WNBA players would absolutely love more money, of course, but we understand the economic realities of our league. But, you know, complaints from WNBA players, that's not happening anymore. Do you know why? Well, I've got the answer. I am vice president of the WNBPA, an amazing players association. And in 2020, we ratified a new CBA that addressed our players' concerns. Obviously, salary. For the first time, we have average salaries in 6 figures, which is amazing. That CBA was not just a win for women's hoopers. It was a win for women in the workplace, period. Widely celebrated. More increase in salaries, full paid maternity leave, mental health resources, you name it, we got it. And there's a reason why there's a saying that women have to work twice as hard to get half as far. Mm-hmm. And if you think that women are not doing the work right now to get our stories told, then you are wildly misinformed. Anyone that supports our game is a real one because they do so with the expectation that they will not get the credit. The women have been, putting in the work and trying to tell their stories, but until we have equity in the rooms that matter most, equity there where representation is there so that our stories actually have enough proximity where people can relate to, then it's going to be hard. And we've been fighting this uphill battle for so long, which is why, I think he really cares and he comes from a place of passion. But the hardest thing is realizing that the platform that you say, it's like use your platform to empower us, not to say I'm not going to speak on Women's History Month. No, use your platform to amplify those who have solutions instead of just preaching what the problems continue to be. And by the way, those problems are outdated because if anyone watched the women's tournament, we are moving in a whole different direction.
Yes, absolutely.
I love everything you just said, Chiney. And the funny thing is, the last time the three of us had our first take over, Draymond was on. So when I was watching him, I was like, he really could have called Chiney. He really could have called if he had questions. That's what bothered me the most because he has access to the answers. He literally has access, the Rolodex to hey Chiney, hey Megan, hey Sue, what's going on? But I actually did, as much as I laughed as he was talking and I shook my head, I did like one thing that he said, which was people like to say that they support women's sports and women athletes and stuff like that. He's right about that. People love to say it, but do you watch regular season games? Do you watch college? Do you buy the same? Do you buy jerseys? Do you invest it? executives? Do you put the games on? You know, it's not just the equal pay and all that. Like, that aside, there's a bigger issue about the commitment, the support. It's not just financial. You know, where do you spend your energy if these games aren't being televised, if you aren't showcasing the draft, if you're not talking about issues that affect um, women athletes at the same rate, you know, like, that's part of it too. It's this like mushrooming thing. And I'm glad that he spoke, because we're talking about the how he's not connecting all the dots. We're speaking about it, and it continues the conversation, because there are a lot of people sitting on their couch right now like, Draymond had a point. I see exactly what he's saying. Like, you know, if the revenue's not there, the revenue's not there. What you want? You know, but they're not actually acknowledging that, you know, like Sue Bird and Chloe Kim and Simone Manuel, like Alex Morgan, like, they started their own website to you know, like, women are out there trying to create their own content and do things for themselves. And if Draymond doesn't get it, and he's a guy who's got connections, like, he has resources to the answers, he knows people, how do you expect guys in corner offices who make decisions about programming to actually invest? You know, like, that's what bothers me. It's a whole bigger thing than just Draymond, but I'm glad he spoke his truth and how he sees it. So Megan and we can all say, have a seat and let's just talk about it a little bit more.
Take a seat.
Okay, so you guys covered just about everything, right? And so what I will say is I just want to shout out a couple of women, similar to what you did, Kimberly, that I know are actually doing the work. There were 2 comments when this initially came down that really stood out to me from women. And actually, I do want to shout out Kareth Burke, who was probably the first person to hear that audio as the sideline reporter for the Golden State Warriors, and she immediately pushed back, right? But then one of the comments that I saw on Twitter was from Devereaux Peters, who played college basketball at Notre Dame. Sinead, I know you remember Dev. She was in the WNBA. She has since moved on. But one of the things that she's doing right now is telling women's stories. She's creating a platform to highlight stories of WNBA athletes. And she shared a very personal thread about being this close in a meeting with someone who had a position to help elevate her platform. And ultimately, it came down to this person not wanting to be involved with the WNBA. I don't know the specifics, but the idea that Draymond not only would get on Twitter, double down in this press conference, and then on Twitter at some of the league's elite stars without acknowledging the work that's being done. I mean, you just have to be better, especially when you reach out and tag people like, I have the solution that no one has ever talked about. So personally, Dre, you should connect with Deb and see if you can amplify her platform. Second, Chanae, your sister, I thought had a tremendous response to this in a press conference following Team USA practice. And she pointed out that so many of us are taught that the word ignorance has a negative connotation. And while that is partly true, sometimes ignorance is just that. You do not know. Now, when you don't know, the volume has to come down just a little bit. But I will say that I don't believe that Dre had, just a tad, y'all. I will say that I don't believe that Draymond Green had ill intentions, but he is ignorant on this topic. And so now, we're still talking about it. You're a name that carries cachet. Please go get informed and then come back with that same energy at a press conference. That's all I want.
And that's not it. Like, you also, you know me, I'm applying pressure because our CBA was ratified on the idea of bet on women and invest in women. And a lot of people say, well, the revenue is not there. Well, guess what? The demand is. We saw what happened with the women's tournament. We know that the standards of what we see, and I know this is usually compared through the lens of basketball, these are the best women's basketball players in the world in the WNBA, the best in college. We had that whole weight room controversy, and a lot of people realize that, hey, like, that floor can be moved up, and it can take little things like you said, you know, amplifying the right stories in the press conferences, or if you actually have the means, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And that's why every room we step into, we try to really further the conversation and get actionable items so that we can continue to move the needle forward. And thank you for shouting out Kareth Burke, who does a tremendous job. Thank you for shouting out my big sis, Monica, because she's president of the WNBPA. And let me tell you this. After I saw that Zoom coming off of Chanae Gold Jr. on ESPN Radio, I hit big sis. I was like, sis, you kept it classy, sis. Because we know what is real. The real thing is the genuine energy for the game is there from Draymond, and we appreciate that. And he's always rolled for women hooping. But at this point, if you are not bringing a solution, then it's hard to sort of say that you should use our platform to tell us what we're doing wrong, because there have been women in the trenches fighting this fight forever.
Yes.
I mean, our league is about to really celebrate 25 straight years, the longest viable women's sports league. And we're excited about it. There's energy for the W coming this season. And one thing that I have personally found is that it takes us. Like, no one will care for this more than us. And so it's our collective action. I mean, literally putting 2 and 2 together, which is why if we're asking for storytelling, y'all stay tuned, because we've got a big story to be told on our network, ESPN Films, that's celebrating the WNBA's 25th season, obviously, but it was the 2020 season that we're covering, and it's all led by women. And that's a beautiful thing. The producers are women. The story will tell the story of the bubble. And it's been amazing to see what the repercussions of the women's activism has been. And we know this because we care about it. And this is what we live. And so if you are truly trying to be an ally, I think it's leaning into that instead of trying to say these are the problems, because the problems are played out at this point. The problems are no longer problems because women are finding solutions to those. And now it's on the rest of society to keep that same energy and keep moving us in that direction.
Well, we love to see women thriving, so thank you to all of you for helping to set the record straight, and also others like you've mentioned, and hopefully it'll help encourage men like Draymond to really understand and not just hear you, but also listen to you so they can get their facts straight. All right, ladies, let's move on. Monica, you're sticking with us, and you are killing it on your First Take debut. Guys, KD got back to action last night and did not miss